Hello,
All
my
right.
name is John Sveck. Welcome to this ALL24 video. Coach Waterman and I have a very special guest today in Duane Forde. Thanks for being with us, Duane.
My pleasure, guys. Anytime.
So as always, Coach Waterman and I will select a random play and we'll just break it down. So if you could do the honors, Coach Waterman, you just tell me when to stop.
Stop.
Okay, we've selected a random play from the Vanier Cup. I'll set the stage here and then I'll give the floor to you, Duane. We have a 1st and 10 situation. Montreal's on offense. It looks like we have maybe an extra offensive lineman or at least a tight end here to the field side and a wing, and then a back offset to the boundary. So any initial thoughts when you see that formation?
Well, I'm always a little intrigued. I mean, they are on the right hash mark, but I'm always intrigued by the idea of leaving that one weak side receiver isolated, hoping to get one-on-one coverage a lot of times if you can get your best guy over there. But in addition to that, you've got the extra offensive lineman. A lot of times people are going to think run, but I'm thinking pass a little bit here. And then the splits that you've got on the receivers to the wide side of the field, that they've given themselves a lot of room to work out there between where the widest guy is aligned and the sideline, and the opportunity that the tight end gives you to have the widest receiver use his waggle to hit the ground running, going against a corner who maybe isn't used to seeing that as much, right? A lot of times corners are used to the receiver being set on the line of scrimmage. So I'll be interested to see where this one goes.
All right.
You're making a lot of great points, Duane. I really like the emphasis on the fact that those splits are a little bit tighter onto the field side. I mean, really forces that field corner to come in and have to play in a space a little tighter than he's normally used to. So I'm really interested to see what happens as well.
Yeah, it's almost like he's covering a slot based on the alignment.
Right.
Okay, we'll let it a little bit of pre-snap motion here developing.
Okay.
So hopefully trying to create some confusion in coverage with different people releasing than it initially looked like we would get.
So a lot to break down there, guys.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on the pre-snap motion, the wing getting into the backfield, and it looks like maybe the back free releasing to the boundary?
Yes, I like that action, because a lot of times initially you're probably kind of thinking, you're going to have that wing type player who is initially by the tight end. You're thinking that he's either going to stay up there in pass protection or you're going to get a 3-man route to the field. But he moves back to become the protector, and now all of a sudden you've got the other back who you assumed would be part of the protection scheme now going to be a release guy that I think they're trying to create a little bit of confusion for the defense in terms of who's where. You've got that one receiver from the boundary now moving inside. He becomes number 2. So if they were able to get man coverage, you create a little bit of confusion for the defense simply because people are releasing from different slots than where they initially had aligned.
And on second glance here, I'm seeing this tight end release. It might be more of a tight end body we have to the field side here rather than an extra lineman.
Yeah, very true. And a little bit of a delay for him as well, right? Kind of baited that D lineman upfield, and he may get lost in coverage as well. I think this is a play when you see the end result that might have been a little bit more effective. If you watch that tight end and the other receiver over the middle, if those guys had a little bit better lateral distribution, if they were a little bit more spread out across the field, I think you'd open up the windows a little bit more for one or the other to be open. But you've got both of those guys kind of, as one of my coaches used to say, they're pissing in the same bucket there. That they've got 3 defenders right there that they're drawing coverage to one another.
Yeah. What's really interesting is when you look at, if you go back to that start of that play, John, you start looking at that motion from the boundary receiver, and then you look at the tailback being released to the boundary. The will linebacker is really a little bit, there's some confusion created on rules, because is that number 2 or is that a tailback? And you can see how there's some misunderstanding or a little bit confusion on how they play that. They actually have 3 guys over there, but the will loosens up, and then he looks like he gets a little bit confused because that is the tailback. So it's a little bit deceiving. Now he's coming back inside and they bump with the Mike linebacker. You see that?
Yeah, and I think that you can see like they're, kind of waiting a little bit to see what each guy is going to do and sort out those routes. Defense actually does a pretty good job of adjusting on the fly to pick this up.
Absolutely. And the same talk of distribution from an offensive side, I'll make the same point on defense. You know, and if this is some kind of zone coverage here, you know, having those two defenders a little close together, we want to distribute just as much on that side, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's go to the tight and see what we can see from this angle.
So good communication from the defense, which I think went a long way, right? You see guys identifying the formation and, you know, pointing, calling out motion, making sure they get everybody on the same page, making their adjustments as the formation changes.
And you're able to get a great look at the quarterback's eyes here of kind of where his progression is. Kind of looking at that boundary, and then he comes back to the middle.
Yeah, and I think the route that he might have liked to have an opportunity to go to on the boundary side, he actually had a receiver running a corner who had a little bit of room to get open.
Yeah.
But there wasn't really time for this to develop. So that wide receiver who had motioned in tight to the formation, he ends up running a corner. And if, you know, if they're able to if they have the time protection wise, you got to believe that they'd like to go there. And so you saw the quarterback initially look to that boundary side, but the defensive tackle to the field side, he's going to beat his guy. And I think the quarterback sees color here and recognizes he's got to get rid of that ball with now the running back having to step in and pick that guy up.
And you often see, right, Duane, with those quarterbacks have that internal clock where they know the ball should be out now. You know, looking at that corner route, it just hasn't developed the way he wanted to. There's a little pressure, so he does the right thing if it's a little cloudy and coming off and hitting that check down and getting the completion, right?
Yeah, and and a good read as well for him is you recognize, you can see a little bit more here. The receiver number 13 who catches the ball, he does a nice job sitting down in that window in that open spot in the zone. But we mentioned the tight end. You'd like to have the tight end wrap sort of around the outside of that nickel or Sam linebacker to the strong side of the field and kind of force him a little bit wider and open up the window either for himself if that guy doesn't widen with him, or a little bit more for that slot who's working towards the inside on the hash mark.
You know, that's one of the biggest things, I guess, Duane, in your experience with the CFL guys. They're so used to every route is adjusted on the fly. University guys are getting there closer, and then the high school guys, that's a little bit too much to ask of them at times.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, and definitely a learning process. And I remember going through it as a player. I mean, in high school, as you said, I mean, you didn't really care if it was man or zone. If you're running a flat, you're running a flat. If you're running a hook, you're running a hook. And it was going to be too much to ask for guys to really read what's happening on the fly. Whereas, you get to university, and in university for us, it was kind of, man or zone. And that was the kind of the extent of what we were told. And then obviously you get to a professional level, and there are so many different variations of each that you've got to figure it out. And communication obviously is a big part of it, right? But so much of it you just learn by doing. It comes from experience and starting to recognize that stuff on the go.
Phenomenal. That's a great breakdown, guys, and really appreciate you being here with us, Duane, and your time.
Hey, my pleasure, guys. Anytime. Hope to do it again soon.